Thank you very much. So I want to say first, saying thank you to the AGEP leadership team, and especially Marcia for all the support during my 2 years. So I will present about the department plan for Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management, where I was a faculty fellow. So each of us, we have our own different contexts, as Rob was saying, that we bring into the table. And actually, in my case, there were some variables that affected how we approach our diversity plan that I wanted to present to you before going to actually what we did. First is that in our department, we have multiple committees that we work separately towards the same goal, that it's increasing the overall justice in our department, increasing equity, and so on. From those, there are two key committees. One is the Graduate Program Advisory Committee, where I am a member since my second year as a fellow. And the first one, the DIJ committee, that actually I had the honor to chair during my first year as a fellow. A couple of other things that had an influence during my fellowship is that revolving leadership. During my 2 years, I had the pleasure to have 3 different department heads, and also that most of the work in my department is social justice overall. So I don't want to say whether those were influencers in a bad or a bad way. It's up to each of us how we take it. Just for example, the laughs that I hear from revolving leadership, I was freaking out. I didn't have a leader vision, correct? But on the other hand, they told me, hey, Carla, you do. We know that you will do good. So they gave me a blank card. What it was at the end, I realized that it was a good thing. The same thing with social justice. You say, yes, that's awesome. People get it in our department. Yes, that's great, but we all know better, correct? And that's a little bit challenging too when you present something. And something that I want to thank Rob to bring to my attention, I was very confused. Too much information. Do I have to do what? So if I have fellows that are in their first year at the end, this is how I felt at certain point. I wish I had some of my relatives to do me the cure of the susto, but with an egg is how we do in my country. But I step a little bit back for a while, and this is what we came up, our diversity plan. So more than talking about the content, I'm going to talk about the process to see how it evolved in my department. The first thing that we did, and Lisa, before you leave, thank you, well, she left. The first thing was an assessment. What's going on in our department? So using the results from the entry survey that Lisa conducted, and from the baseline activity that we all have to realize, we came up with a set of strengths, obstacles, and opportunities in our department. We also identified 3 areas of work. We found that in retention, we were great. We were having 100% of retention over the years with students from underrepresented minorities. I remember a comment from Yvette early on, and she said, well, go back 10 years. So we went back 10 years of data, and still we had 100% of retention. But our problem is that we didn't have recruitment. We have very few underrepresented minority students. So we realized that that was our major area that we have to focus on. And also, middle range, we also have to improve our cultural context to prepare our students for their desired career. With that, and with all the information that I was provided every month, and with our insights from my co-fellows, I came up, I think, like with a list of 100 things that we could do. So then I have to do a priority check with my department, DGP, the Director of Graduate Programs. So we met a couple of times, just trying to focus, okay, what priorities that we can do. And we realized a couple of things, things that are feasible to do. I mean, there's things that we have to be realistic, and others that, based on his experience, he told me we already tried that, it didn't work, or we are doing that I didn't know. So we came up with 20 actions, each of 8 of which were deemed by both of us of high priority. I want to take this off. Okay, so one of the things that we think it's important is that when we created our goals, we also had to have some metrics to see whether our goals we were advancing over time. So you can see in the screen what were our specific goals regarding recruitment, retention, and preparedness for future careers, especially related to the cultural climate in our department. And from that, we established certain metrics that we have to follow. One of the things that we included, I said we, but at the beginning it was mostly I, included in the plan to make it feasible was to have a sustainability plan. And our suggestion was that the graduate program advisory committee review our diversity plan and our metrics every 3 years. So then I have to go from, actually, this is what I think, or we think that we have to do, and then actually go into action. So that is when the DGP and the department head were involved in that process. The first thing was I regrouped all the actions into something that it was more easy to grasp, correct? Because some of the actions for recruitment could overlap for retention. So I regrouped it based on 3 themes. Doctoral student pathway, we came up with 7 actions, graduate program itself, 9 actions, and holistic and cultural-based advising, 4 actions. So very excited, went to the graduate program advisory committee, presented my actions. This was during the time of COVID and other issues with graduate students. They said, this is great, and it was installed in the graduate program. The next year, I presented again that, but I was a committee member, and they said, okay, Carla, this is great, but we're not going to do the 20 actions that you have there. So go back and prioritize those. And there is where my department head had a key role. I met with him, and based on what was his vision for the department, he helped me to prioritize those goals. And after that, now we have in the DGP living document where we have all our actions prioritized, but every single, we meet once a month. Every month we update that based on whether we are achieving one of those or have completed some of those goals. So just to give you an idea, and I will not go through all of the 20 goals or actions that we have, sorry, not goals. In the doctoral student pathway, we realized that one of the things was for recruitment to allocate 1 departmental assistantship for a student coming from an underrepresented minority group. You can see in the screen that actually at this point it is still a spending. And part of the reason is because at the college level, there's that initiative too, that we combine with my other 2 fellows in the college to try to achieve that. One of the first things that we did is to remove GRE admission requirement to kind of make it easier. And that was one of the first things that we did. So overall, we only have 2 pending actions out of the 7 that we proposed. For the graduate program, we proposed 9 actions and only 2 are pending. One of the things that are pending is clarify prelim exam information. That was a key, it's very confusing. I am glad to say that we are voting in our meeting for 2 weeks on the final document. So hopefully this time it's going to be as completed, but it has been like that for some time. Holistic and cultural-based advising. This is the part that we propose for actions, but we still are working on that. We still have 3 that are pending. One of the things that we completed is that we have created a graduate student well-being subcommittee within GPAC, and it's an ad hoc committee in case that one of our undergraduate students have any issues, especially related to communications with the advisor. And that came from a recommendation from Windsor in one of our committees. With that, that is just an overall brief of how we did our diversity plan in our department. And I don't know if there's questions or thank you again, everybody.
Question. Yes. On the screen. On the chat.
I do Zoom every single day, but when it's not my computer, I kind of freak out. Oh, thank you. It was just a thank you, I think. Thank you.
There's the person who brings their hand on the top of the screen.
Oh, okay. Please, Yenora, can you just go and ask your question?
Oh, thank you. And I love the way you pronounce my name. It reminds me of growing up in LA and, you know, all of my friends who pronounce my name that way. Thank you so much for the helpful information. So my question is about the removal of the GRE requirement. So there's been a lot of move with graduate admissions professionals to remove the GRE requirement. What things did you do to substitute that? So you just don't eliminate it, right? So were there some other more holistic review criteria that you used to substitute for the GRE? What did that look like?
Thanks very much. I hope that I pronounced correctly. I was not sure whether I...
Yes, yes, it sounds just right.
Okay. So actually the GRE, when we remove it, and it took us a while, this discussion, because we removed it and we wanted to substitute it for an additional material. But then with consultation, we realized that we were making a lot of exceptions already with the GRE scores, because we require all applicants to have a statement in their application, and usually it's between a 2- and 3-page statement. And our department works a little bit different from others. To be admitted, they do need to have a committed advisor. So everybody gets admitted in our department with that advisor. In reality, what happened is that the applicant with the potential advisor or advisors have several communications before the actual discussion at the department level. So originally, as you mentioned, we were trying to look for something to substitute the GRE, and then we realized that we were just waiting too long to look for what was the best substitution material when we actually didn't need it. So in short, we do have, well, in addition of the recommendations that I think is a standard, at least at NC State, what we give a lot of priority or emphasis is the candidate's statement. Why do they want to study a PhD? Why in that particular area? Why with that faculty advisor? And even after that, if there are previous conversations with several faculty in we admit graduate students collectively, because all our graduate students need to have an assistantship. That's a little bit different too. So it depends on everybody that we do a collective admittance. Hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Now I can say thank you, I guess. Thank you.